Greetings, fellow art lovers and those who appreciate the fine art of monster masks and general Halloweenature. You know, ladies and gentlemen, having myself lived through many Halloweens, and having designed or built or supervised or helped out with or in some fashion been involved with a great many haunted attractions and haunted houses, haunted forests, having been to many Halloween themed conventions and pumpkin decorating contests, Halloween parades, pumpkin festivals, that sort of thing. I've seen thousands of pumpkins over the centuries, and maybe you've noticed this too, but one thing I've noticed is that while the pumpkins can be decorated to look either scary or funny or happy or sad or pretty or whatever you like, one thing I've noticed consistently is that very few of them smoke cigars. It's true. That little wisp of smoke, you see, that looked like a snake charmer more, didn't it? You know what the little wisp of smoke you see coming up from a pumpkin is almost always the result of a lit candle being inside the pumpkin and not from a cigar that the pumpkin is smoking. However, today's pumpkin is a little bit different because he is the old fogey with the stogie, a fantastic creation from the weirdos at Ghoulish Productions. It's this guy, which they call Mr. Pumpkin. That's his name. He's just Mr. Pumpkin. Now, oddly enough, I notice online, people only seem to have photos of this guy like this or like that, like a profile or a three-quarter view, and they never show him head on. And I think that's because somebody doesn't have the confidence to give us credit for figuring out that it's not supposed to be symmetrical and it's actually sculpted asymmetrically. If you look at the design, you can see his what would be a jawline if he were a human is different on this side, and I would say that's because he's doing this sort of, well, I can't do it because I'm not a pumpkin. He's chomping on his cigar in such a way, and there's a nice depth to that. I don't know if you can see that, but it protrudes realistically and effectively and humorously from his mouth. And it's clear to me when I look at him that the sculptor designed it with this asymmetry to the jaw. But I wonder if maybe people who take pictures are like, well, people will see that from the front and they might think it's a damaged mask and it's all squished up there or something. And let's just show him this way. And then they think maybe we won't. But anyway, I give you credit for understanding what I'm talking about right there. He's not supposed to be 100%, symmetrical, all right? But he is supposed to be 100% weird and scary and fun, and I think they managed all of those things. This was sculpted by a guy whose name is probably pronounced correctly, more like Hermann Giles. But since it's spelled like German Giles, that's what people in America tend to call him, but it's not German Giles, but that's how it's spelled. Anyway, this is part of the Nightmare Makers series from Ghoulish, and the Nightmare Makers series is just some masks that are a little more deluxe, and they're ones where particular artists were given free rein to sort of do whatever their imaginations wanted to do. This guy is pretty hot. Now, when I first saw him, and you might notice there's no paper in him, but I'll show you what we'll do. I'll put my new favorite mask stand, the Tom Spina Designs Apex. Does that look about right? Maybe about there. The Apex mask stand. Let's plunk him on there and see how that, just about right. Yes, you can adjust that to any size, so that's nice. But Mr. Pumpkin here does not have the Ghoulish logo on the back, or at least I couldn't find it, although it does have a funny little squiggle that is either a rune that will bring him to life on the night of the full moon, or it could be a little insignia that Mr. Hermann Giles puts on his sculptures. Not sure. But look at this guy. He's got these evil little green eyes. And when I first saw him in a picture, I thought, he's got a beard and mustache going on there. We need to see one with real hair glued over that, because normally that's how I prefer my hairy monsters, with real hair. But I'm not going to do that to one of these, because when you see him in person, you realize, and you may not get this from online photos, when you see him in person, you realize this isn't hair, this is stem matter. Do you know what I mean? It's because he's a mutant pumpkin, and these things, these growths, this isn't really hair on top of his head. Of course, this is more like a stem on a very bad, warped, distorted pumpkin. And this stuff is the same. The beard and mustache are not really supposed to be hair. They're supposed to be more like organic vegetable matter, like the rest of him. And as you can see, he's having fun. If I was going to wear this, the only thing I can think of for him to be as a character, because of the mean look in his eye and the fact that he looks smart, he has this high forehead, he looks pretty clever, he got this big confident smile, and he's the old fogey with the stogie and all that. I think he would be a gangster, which means, you know, the name Mr. Pumpkin, well, that sounds like some Ronco product. Would have been on television in the 70s and 80s, doesn't it? Mr. Pumpkin! Hey, Pumpkin, I'll be back to pick you up later. I'm on the radio. No. But that's not what he deserves. By the way, that was supposed to be smarmy. Did that sound like a smarmy guy? I don't know. When I do smarmy, I never know how much smarm it takes to be smarmy. I hope that was enough smarm to qualify as smarmy. Anyway, I think he's a gangster in the land of monsters and pumpkins and Halloween, and I think therefore they should have called him the Gourd Father. Yeah, the Gourd Father, right? With his gang, his gang of criminal pumpkins and monsters and slashers who run around and scare people on Halloween. And if you don't pay the protection money every Halloween, somebody might end up on the porch carved. We wouldn't want that to happen, would we? No. Very intimidating guy, the Gourd Father. So I would wear him with a suit like a classic old movie gangster would wear. And you know, those the classic gangsters, the best crime lords and crime bosses, have a great sense of sartorial perfection. So you have a nice suit, maybe in his case, maybe something weird instead of the traditional flower in the lapel, maybe a creepy looking flower or a dead flower or something creepy like that. And I don't know if there's a way to get this to actually blow smoke. There might be. I haven't investigated that, but there are magic tricks that involve fake smoke, and maybe something along the order of puff cigarettes. Have you ever seen those? Fake cigarettes that you can hold them up and it looks like you're smoking, and they give off a little bit of maybe something like that could be incorporated into this. Or if you want to cut a hole in the end of it, and if he's on a mannequin and not a costume, you could probably have some sort of smoke machine that would blow a little wisp of smoke up now and then, so it looks like he's smoking, but he's not joking. Yeah. Mr. Pumpkin, or as I like to think of him, the Gourd Father, will set you back around $70, I think. Now, I cannot be held responsible for fluctuations in the ever-changing prices in the world of mass-marketed masks, but okay, I've seen this guy selling for anywhere from $65 to $85. So I'm going to guess that you probably won't have to pay a lot more than that, and you probably won't pay a lot less than that unless you find somebody who's closing them out, or unless he comes up with a scheme to get masks of himself into every home in America as part of his giant criminal takeover of criminal pumpkins. Yeah, the feared but revered Gourd Father of the famous Pumpkini family. Sure, that's my vote for him. Now, I suppose he could also be maybe a pirate, maybe with a pirate costume, if you know, surrounded by other types of costumes and with appropriate something done to the head hat-wise, he could maybe be a pirate pumpkin. But I think he's the Gourd Father. I think of him as that gangland mob boss, the Gourd Father. And look out for him if he comes to your neighborhood or your pumpkin patch, because, if you've ever heard the expression, poor so-and-so is going through a rough patch right now, a rough patch is any patch that he's in.